In the 4th century, a Spanish nun named Egeria made a pilgrimage to the Holy Land. In her religious tour of sites associated with the Bible, she recounted how the Christians of Jerusalem at that time commemorated the final days and hours of Jesus' life at the different sites associated with his passion. In the 14th century, Franciscan monks established a commemorative walk, which by the 18th and early 19th centuries settled on what is now the Via Dolorosa, or Way of the Cross, in the old city of Jerusalem. This route starts near the remains of the old Fortress Antonia north of the Temple Mount, where later Christians assumed that Pilate had tried Jesus, and proceeds to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, the traditional site of both Jesus' crucifixion and burial.
Jesus Christ said that when he would be lifted up upon the cross, that he would draw all people to him. Personally, in my life, I found strength and power drawing closer to Jesus Christ through meditating on his crucifixion, through pondering the event that the Savior himself defined as his greatest act of love.
When he said, "This is my body, this is my blood," it was not just referring to the bread and the wine. So he was looking out over his disciples and saying, "You are my body, you are my blood." And so we are his body and blood because we're doing his work. We are his hands and his feet. And we go out and we are the ones who are, in that very real way, Jesus for so many people, and what we say and what we do, and the kind of the job description of a Christian.
While archaeologists and many scholars today now believe that the trial actually took place at the old palace of Herod, which was the headquarters of the Roman governor at that time, and proceeded along a different route to the site of the later Holy Sepulchre, it was the route established by the Franciscans that is used by pilgrims today, and which features the first 9 of what became 14 traditional Stations of the Cross, the other 5 being within the Holy Sepulchre itself.
I have personally experienced in my life, since I'm a native Italian and I spent a good portion of my life there and have a lot of family members who are Catholic. I grew up with a grandmother who would watch it on television, the Via Crucis at the Colosseum in Rome with the Pope. And as I was growing up, I wasn't paying too much attention to it. But as I grew older, I came to appreciate more the richness of its spirituality.
Because many Christians could not even dream of going to Jerusalem on pilgrimage, it became common to erect images or small shrines of each of these 14 stations in local churches so that believers everywhere could read, meditate, and pray to spiritually join with Jesus on his final walk.
I think it's actually a pretty cool metaphor seeing it in the churches, just because whether the patrons notice it or not, I think the intent of having them around the church is that it's where the light comes in. And so I feel like has sort of a greater purpose. It's just showing us that the images that are represented there and the story that the Stations of the Cross tell are really where we can find light in our lives and in our church as well.
It's a powerful, using the word symbolism, it's a powerful, powerful symbolism that brings us closer to the reality. Sometimes when we look at Jesus on the cross, we don't see all of the suffering that went into it. And he says, no greater love that you would lay down your life for your friends. And that's what Jesus does.
Many of these stations come directly from episodes mentioned in the Gospels, but some, such as the instances in which Jesus stumbles or falls under the weight of the cross, or where he meets his weeping mother, are pious imaginations that came about as Christians tried to figure out what must have happened along the way.
At Station 6, a legendary woman named Saint Veronica braves the jeering crowd to wipe Christ's sweaty brow with a clean cloth. The legend tells that from the tears and bloody sweat staining her cloth, a perfect portrait of Christ took shape. The station calls us to recollect that inasmuch as we have done it unto one of the least of these, we have done it unto him.
For me, watching an image of Jesus Christ being crucified, whether that's a painting or whether it's a movie, or whether it's going through the stations of the cross and meditating on the final hours of the Savior's life, is a moving spiritual experience that allows me to come closer to him.
For me, the power of these stations is particularly illustrated in the case of Station 5, which commemorates how Simon of Cyrene was brought forward to help Jesus carry the heavy cross beam.
Clearly, Jesus Christ is a God. He didn't need help to be able to do any of these things if he had wanted to, but at this most difficult time, it was okay for him, the Savior of all men, a God, to have help from another mortal man to carry his cross and his burden.
It may have been that Simon's experience with Jesus on the road that day changed him, leading him and his family to conversion. If we allow Simon, like Veronica, to represent all of us, we too can share in the Lord's experience, and by approaching Golgotha with him, similarly be saved. As we reflect on all that our Savior suffered for us, our own love for and faith in him deepens, and the solemnity that we feel today will only increase our joy on Easter morning, when the pain and suffering is left behind as the Lord rises triumphant from the tomb.